Hi, everyone. It's Ryan Lizza with TELUS News here with Judge Michael Luttig. Luttig has written a remarkable piece that we've published at TELUS News this morning, and he's here to talk about it. This piece is intended to mark the Independence Day holiday. It's a very different piece from Judge Luttig, and I'm just going to start, Judge, with you telling us what what is this piece?
Well, thank you, Ryan. First, for publishing this piece for me on Substack. Um, I barely knew what Substack was, and I couldn't possibly have done this without someone like you. But I do sincerely appreciate it. Uh, my entire professional life and career, I've always wanted to write a July 4th uh, piece on the independence of the American colonists from the British Crown. Over the years, I've seen several of those. Most often, I've seen them in the Wall Street Journal. But in any event, I'm getting a little bit older now by the day, um, and I had never done this. And as we began to approach this July 4th day in particular, um, I had an opportunity to do what I had long wanted to do, so I did it. Um, I think it's to me, I think of it as a very important piece. As you said, it's not an essay, it's not a op-ed, it's not a polemic, it's not newsworthy in any sense at all. It's more of an historical piece, and hopefully it will be a piece, as you said, for the ages. Now that we published it. So what is it? It I think of it as a Declaration of Independence in 2025. That is, it's the mirror image of the original Declaration of Independence uh, uh, on July 4th, 1776. Now, of course, um, there's much more in today's Declaration of Independence than there was in the original Declaration of Independence. Um, and what is that? What I've tried to do is state the self-evident truths about America and about American democracy and the rule of law uh, in today's terms, with the benefit, of course, of almost 250 years of of thinking and writing about America, the Declaration of Independence itself, and most importantly, the Constitution of the United States, which is a long way of saying that the self-evident truths that I have sought to identify in this piece uh, reference uh, primarily primarily they reference uh, the constitutional history since the founding. That's why your audience will see in many of the truths explicit reference or the words from the Constitution of the United States. Uh, for your audience, and by the way, I didn't know this, or I don't remember knowing it. In the original Declaration of Independence, the American colonists, um, th- they talked about of course, the self-evident truths. Those self-evident truths are very few in number, and of course, very, very general. Uh, for instance, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Very capacious language, but it's language, of course, that has been filled in over almost 2.5 centuries by the Supreme Court of the United States. Uh, those were the very few self evident truths in the original Declaration of Independence. Now, then the colonists went on to list 27 grievances against the British Empire and the British Crown. Those 27 are very, are very, very specific. Um, so what I have done, I have used every single word, I believe, from the original Declaration of Independence, um, especially including the every one uh, of the uh, complaints, if you will, against the British Crown. Uh, and then I have identified anew uh, the self evident truths today, the self evident truths, being in number the same as uh, the grievances of the American colonists against uh, King George III. Um, and I have then lined up those specific grievances from the Declaration of Independence, lined them up with the quote, self evident truths today about uh, the United States of America. So that's a long-winded way of explaining uh, the document. Um, and of course, I mean, in summary, uh, the document has uh, much, much more uh, detail and specifics than the original than the original uh, uh, declaration. Um, for the obvious reason that we are now almost 250 years thence, and I've tried to incorporate all of the learning of America uh, since the original declaration.
And so just so people understand the format here, and I'm glad you explained that. What we end up with in the piece is are 27 basically couplets where the first line is a statement of a self-evident truth, um, and the second line is a reasoning for why that self-evident truth is important to state. And correct me if I've got that wrong, Judge, but I'll read an example. Here's the second one of your 27. The first line is government should secure, protect, and preserve our unalienable rights, liberties, and freedoms. And then there is a statement that begins with the word for, F-O-R, in each one of these 27. And in this example, it reads, for the king, quote, has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection, end quote. Um, what are we quoting there, and what are we quoting throughout the piece?
Yes. Most importantly, we are quoting throughout the piece um, the um, the declaration uh, and the words of the the of our founders, and that was those words were their complaints against the king,
Yeah.
uh, and then I have lined up those complaints of our founders against the king uh, with the um, self-evident truths that we know exist today. Uh, those primarily being from the Constitution of the United States of America. So, in terms of original work and thinking, Ryan, all I have done is the only novelty about this piece, though the novelty is significant, is that um, I have tried to lay out the self evident truths, if you will, that emerged from um, the Declaration, and then put those truths in contemporary words. Um, that's a
I want
long
to,
way explaining
yeah.
what.
One of the things I wrote in the introduction, in my introductory note, is that this is not a piece that should be scanned or skimmed. It's a piece for people who are watching this that I recommend you sort of find a quiet place without distractions, maybe on July 4th itself. So you sort of contemplate the meaning of July 4th and sit down and read it slowly and carefully. Um, that's the way that I got the most out of it, Judge, and that's when the sort of power of the piece really sort of washed over me. I want to read another example. This is down towards the bottom of the 27 self-evident truths, and you start: no person should be investigated by the executive on pretext, or investigated and prosecuted by the executive on pretext, in revenge and retaliation for different opinion or politics from the executive, or for personal offense taken by the executive. And then the for statement that is coupled with that reads as for the king, quote, transported us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses. And this is language from the Declaration, and quartered large bodies of armed troops among us and protected them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Um, took me a few readings of this to really digest part of what's going on. And of course, you're going to get this question quite a bit. It is impossible to read this without being struck, overwhelmed, in some cases horrified by the similarities with the grievances that the colonists had against King George III, and some of what is going on in the United States right now with Donald Trump, whose name, I should point out, is never mentioned anywhere in what we published at TELUS. Um, but that's what really hits you when you read this piece carefully.
Then that's correct, Ryan. And I'm not trying to be naive about this at all. Um, I wrote this as a piece not for today, but for the ages, if you will.
Yeah.
Though, of course, the substance of it has particular relevance uh, today uh, to the incumbent president of the United States, given what he has, himself done and very proud of having done um, over the past. Well, I started to say 6 months, but the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Let's.
Or you could even say 10 years at this point in some ways.
I'll let you say that. I, uh, no, I want to make the point. The time frame that I'm referencing in this document, in contemporary time, that is the time from um, you know January of 2021 until today.
I want to talk a little bit, Judge, about Thomas Paine and his importance historically and also to you personally. There's a quote from Paine in the piece, and I'll read it for everyone. In America, the rule of law is king. Let a day be solemnly set apart for proclaiming the charter. Let it be brought forth, placed on the divine law, the word of God. Let a crown be placed thereon, by which the world may know that so far as we approve of monarchy, that in America the law is king. For as in absolute governments the king is law, so in free countries the law ought to be king, and there ought to be no other. And lest any ill use should afterwards arise, let the crown at the conclusion of the ceremony be demolished and scattered among the people whose right it is. That's from Thomas Paine in 1776. I know that quote's very important to you. We spent a lot of time placing it in the right place in the piece and getting the formatting right. Um, Tell us about Paine and specifically the importance of that quote.
Well, thank you for that question, Ryan. Um, at a personal level, deeply personal level, those are the most powerful words ever spoken in American history
Hmm.
for for me. But of course, they really are the most powerful words that have ever been spoken for the United States of America. And I, I love his words. Um, and of course, um, for the rest of history, you know, he will be celebrated for those for um, I don't know what I could say any more than that, except that um, I personally could never even hope to pen words like those, Ryan. Those are the those are the words of one of the um, founders of this great nation.
I want to read one more of the self-evident truths along with the coupled statement. I call these couplets, and I thought it was really fun when we were putting this piece together in the Substack editor. We discovered that one of the things that helped us with the formatting was to use a function in Substack meant for poetry, and in a lot of ways, this piece is poetry as much as it is prose. And so, let me read one more of the couplets here, Judge. Government should only this is one of my this is the one that really hit me when I first read it. Government should only wage war against foreign enemies, not misperceived domestic enemies. The people are not the enemy of the government. Rather, the government that regards the people as its enemy is itself the enemy of the people. Those are your words. And that's coupled with this from the Declaration. For the king has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has abdicated government here by waging war against us. The king is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. Um, I don't know what you could add to that, but that one was struck me as particularly forceful. And it's again, it's hard to read these, especially when you get to the language of the Declaration, without thinking about what's going on in the United States at this moment.
I Ryan, I could never uh, even hope to uh, achieve the eloquence of those words. And of course, I think I'm smart enough not even to try. Um, so, in answer to your implicit question, I, I have I have nothing to say for me, but also for the American people, Ryan. The the words of of the Declaration and of the Constitution are um, melodious, uh, if you will. They're the most magnificent words um, ever penned in the world, let alone in the United States of America. None of us could ever hope to even approximate uh, the exalted language that we find in the Declaration of Independence and uh, and even in the Constitution of the United States.
So I want to ask you one more thing, and then we're gonna cut this off because I have booked you today, to your chagrin, on a bunch of interviews to get this piece in front of as many eyeballs as possible. So I know you're sitting there quietly seething about all of the interviews I'm making you do today, but you're being a good sport about it. Um, and I just want you to leave people. I want you to leave folks with what did you learn about the Declaration from studying it? Because I know we talked recently about how you spent the last few weeks or months really studying the Declaration and its origin and history. What do you want? What did you? What's something that people might not know about the Declaration of Independence that is useful to know as everyone starts the holiday weekend here soon?
The Declaration of Independence is, without any question whatsoever, the greatest document of liberty and self governance ever written in the history of the world, Ryan. There is no one that I know of today, nor has there been anyone that I have read about in the past that in the past 250 years about whom I have read uh, that could even approximate the soaring language of the Declaration of Independence, and for that matter, the Constitution of the United States. Um, there's, I was, I want your viewers to know that I don't think for one second that I could ever approximate the glorious language in the Declaration or the Constitution. Uh, I've just tried in my own workmanlike way uh, to try to write this particular document for this particular uh, Independence Day in the United States of America, and uh, I am honored just to have attempted that, Ryan.
Well, you did more than attempt. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece, and I hope people read it carefully. Maybe sit down with your family this July 4th and read it and discuss it, and learn a little bit about the history of the Declaration. And I think you will come away with a sense, um, unfortunately or not, about how the times from 250 years ago, as odd as it might seem, are not as foreign to the 1770s are not all that different in some very important ways from the 2020s. Judge, we're going to move over to a discussion with Steve Schmidt now because I've got you booked back to back. So anyone who's watching this live stream, we're going to end here, and we're going to bounce over and have a conversation with Steve Schmidt on another Substack Live of The Warning. Judge, thank you for doing this. Thank you for publishing it with TELUS News. It was a pleasure working with you on this piece over the next couple of days. And don't go anywhere because we're going to continue this conversation, but I'm going to end this live stream. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Okay.